Today, we become legends.
Hey, my name's Inter, and welcome back to Inter Games for another banger. Today, we're going to be doing some more Reddit review. SMITE 2's Dev Insight Show was revealed very recently, and there's been an absolute ton of changes made. And so I just thought I would go through a bunch of these Reddit posts. We've got about like 6 Reddit posts to go over, and we're going to have a look at the comments and what people think about all these changes. And I'll give my my own takes on them as well. So first up, we have Shell and Aegis returning as relics in SMITE 2, but you can still only have one relic. So after I saw that Thanatos was basically unchanged, I knew Aegis coming back was inevitable. The more beads burners that get introduced into SMITE 2 with characters you basically need Aegis against in SMITE 1 on the same team together was going to feel like shit to play against. Yes, but this comment doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me because you can only have one. So like if you were gonna buy Aegis, you're gonna forgo beads and get wrecked by the beads burners. I feel like honestly Aegis is gonna have an insanely low pick rate in like decent ranks. I think in lower ranks, especially because people can't just like CC and get an immediate kill off it, you know, team might not be there for follow-up, you don't have the coordination, you don't have people recognizing that, oh, this guy's hit the CC, we can go in here. But I think as you get up to, you know, sort of like gold plus even, or at least platinum plus, so you're going to see a very low pick rate on Aegis anyway in SMITE 2. When you've got Aegis up against beads, you're just going to be almost always better off going beads. Granted, they did make changes in SMITE 2 to CC, where they nerfed DR, but made the CCs last a lot less in general. And so like getting hit by one random CC isn't necessarily going to mean your instant death, often like it does in SMITE 1, but I still think beads are going to save you 5 times more than Aegis will save you, and there's not really much reason to go Aegis. Maybe in some very specific matchups where they really don't have a lot of threatening CC, you might want to go Aegis, but honestly, I feel like it's going to have like a 1% pick rate in decent ranks. I think the fact that you can only pick Aegis and not bead / Aegis really helps the balance, but if Aegis gets to where it feels bad to play against, they can also make it to where you can't move while immune. Yeah, honestly, I don't think this is needed. Personally, I did prefer when Aegis worked this way. It gives you a little bit of a trade-off. You know, you are getting that damage immunity, but you also can't like juke around and reposition in the middle of it. I would be fine with this change, but I don't think it's going to be necessary. I think Aegis is going to be bad anyway. Lack of teleport sucks, and Sundering is going to be an honest throw pick. Why that over Combat Blink or Bead? Shell is nice, but Combat Blink is still just a better choice. So yeah, lack of teleport does suck. I was a big fan of teleport. I would much rather have seen that instead of like Shell or Aegis personally. Like Aegis, I guess it's good for newer players, but again, as I said, it's very unlikely you're going to see Aegis even picked up like at all pretty much in the higher ranks, so it's going to be basically a useless relic slot. And Shell is cool and all, but like just, you know, put Shell on Gauntlet of Thebes as an active or something like that. Just do something silly like that where supports can have easy access to Shell and they doesn't have to take up their relic. But I guess there is a trade-off there in support. You know, do you want Shell or do you want Combat Blink is probably what you're going to be looking at in support, or maybe even do you want Sunder? This guy says Sunder is going to be a throw pick, but honestly, I think Sunder could be really good. Like, sure, it's nice for like an aggressive kill lane or whatever, you can go Sunder and you get a bunch of extra damage, but that objective secure, it does like 1,000 true damage, which is going to be more than basically any ability in the game can do, because they'll get mitigated if it's like magical or physical damage coming from a god, but it's 1,000 true damage. I'm not sure how many like protections or how much mitigation like a fire giant will have, but let's say, you know, it reduces damage by about 50%. I think that's fairly reasonable. You're going to need to hit it for like 2,000 raw damage to be able to hit 1,000 damage, whereas 1,000 true damage is just going to be guaranteed secure. So I think that honestly, especially in like comp and high level, Sunder might be much more popular than it is in lower level. But yeah, it's objective secure, it's objective steal. You know, if your support doesn't go Sunder, or like your solo lane or whoever is going to mostly be picking up Sunder, probably supports, but maybe solo laners will buy it as well because they have no TP. But then again, solo laners want Combat Blink, so like there actually is some pretty interesting trade-offs with only one relic option. You know, which ones do you want? But like if your team goes Sunder and their team doesn't go Sunder, you can very easily just steal their fire giants because that's going to do way more damage than like any mage ability would in terms of secure. We shouldn't need Aegis if we have Combat Blink. Disappointed to see that back. Shell at least makes sense for dealing with walls, but I would have preferred Aegis to stay gone. Oh yeah, true, they brought back Phantom Shell as well, so it can be nice for dealing with like Ymir walls, or Mordred I believe is getting added soon, so I can deal with that. So yeah, I guess that's fine, but they also could have just added that to an active item, in my opinion. You know, whatever there is a shell active item, I believe. I'm not sure if that's been removed or if there's going to be like double shells. That could be kind of funny, but you could just put the Phantom Shell effect on that, or even just have your own active item that is Phantom. But yeah, for me with Aegis, I'm kind of indifferent to it. I feel like it's a bit of a waste of a slot, honestly. I'm not one of the doomers that thinks like Aegis is going to completely ruin the game, because honestly, at the level that I play at, no one's going to buy Aegis anyway. There's almost no reason to go Aegis over Blink, as I've mentioned. And so really, for me, I'm not worried about Aegis ruining the game. I'm worried about Aegis being pointless and taking up a relic slot that could have been teleport or something more interesting. And yeah, I'll quickly mention this again. I've mentioned it in a couple of previous videos. I think with Aegis, it could be balanced a little bit more by making it a 100% decaying damage reduction effect. So essentially for like maybe the first half a second or something, you have 100% damage reduction, but then it slowly scales down to 0 over the course of like the next 1.5 seconds or something for 2 seconds of total uptime. uptime. And that would kind of incentivize people to press it at the exact right moment rather than just pressing it and, you know, having complete immunity for like 1.5 seconds or however long it lasts in Smite 1. But honestly, I don't think it's going to matter in general. I think the people complaining that Aegis is going to ruin the game now that it's back, they're either really bad at the game or they don't know what they're talking about, because it may be in super low ranks people might buy Aegis a lot, but I feel like in high ranks there's no reason to go Aegis over Beads in almost every single matchup. Moving on though, we got the God card arts returning in Smite 2 Reddit post. So this is the Loki one that they showcased on stream. Looks really sick, honestly. You know, just an overall fidelity improvement. The face looks way better. Just in general looking really good. And they said they were going to do these with all of the gods, but in the original launch of 24/7, not all gods will have these. Some will just be using their classic legacy Smite 1 card arts until they can like get all these ready. So bless everyone that get feedback for this. I made a post and plenty of others did too. Love the card arts back. Yeah, this is just a universally positive change. I don't think there's anything to complain about here. The 3D card arts looked absolutely terrible. And yeah, there's probably not too much more to talk about on this post. It's just universally positive. You can't really complain about this, right? Mordred is next up. So it wasn't technically on the Dev Insight show, but they did make their own post about Mordred and how he's going to work. There's no full kit information yet. That will come on the patch notes show, which is going to be in a couple of weeks' time. So we don't have his full kit yet. Did play against one in the last alpha as a bug. Oh, I guess he must have been available like very briefly in the last alpha or something. But this is the first god in a while I'm really disappointed in. I was hyped for Mordred, but to me, he looks like a free-to-play mobile game rogue character. I think he looks fine. Honestly, I'm not particularly disappointed in the way he looks. They could have gone a lot of different directions with Mordred. Obviously, you know, there's the Mordred Achilles skin. They could have gone like that kind of direction. They've gone a little bit more sort of like fantasy edgelord style with it. I think it's fine. I'm not massively in love with it or anything, but I don't think it's particularly bad, like visuals-wise. He definitely looks like King Arthur's son if you started dressing like Morgan Le Fay. They nailed that part. Yeah, that's true, to be fair. This is very Morgan Le Fay-esque with the armor and like color scheme. But yeah, that's Mordred. Not really too much more to talk about until we get a lot more information on him on the patch notes show about how his kit is actually going to work. I've got a full video on the main channel covering the closer look post that he did for Mordred and giving my thoughts on it if you're interested. Let's move on. So based on community feedback, Smite 2's art style has gotten an update to more closely recreate the Smite 1 feeling. Okay, the images aren't working on this, so we'll open them up over here. So yeah, here's the before and after of mid lane. Here's before and after of Chaos side mid lane. Here's the before and after of Order side jungle. Chaos side jungle. And that's it. So yeah, you can see that just the massive improvement. Honestly, I'm a really big fan of this overall art direction change. Stepping a little bit away from the like hyper realism and like default UE5 game kind of look and stylizing it a lot more. Makes it look not more like Smite 1 necessarily. It still looks very different from Smite 1, but it's got that same like stylized feel. So let's see what people think about this. Even being a work in progress, it's a significant glow up from before. Yeah, I 100% agree with this. There are also obviously some things that need to be done. You know, like these edges here where it kind of like connects to the grass area and like other stuff like that. Lighting probably needs a little bit of like rebaking and stuff like that, but yeah, overall as a work in progress, this is something that they have done very quickly based on community feedback. You know, I doubt this was planned, you know, 3 months ago when they originally started like launching the alphas. This was probably something that they got feedback from like around the time of like alpha 2 or alpha 3, and so they've probably only been working on this for like 1 or 2 months and they managed to get all this done. Maybe even less than 1 or 2 months. It kind of depends on when they decided to change the art direction. People have been complaining about it basically since the launch of the game, but I feel like the noise really got big around like 1 or 2 months ago about this stuff. And so yeah, what they've done already in terms of just like stylizing the game, like look at the difference here. It's so incredible. Just the ground looks so much better. The lighting overall looks better. Yeah, just a really, really massive improvement in my opinion. Super excited to actually play this. Love this. Big complaint of mine in playtest 3 was how desaturated the maps were. Arena was just depressing to play on with how muted the color palette was. Yeah, this is another big one. Not only have they stylized it, but it's much more saturated and colorful now. Interesting. I like it. It does look more cartoonish, maybe even more than Smite 1, but it definitely feels more at home. Yeah, it is very cartoony, I will say. I don't hate it personally, but honestly, as a first pass, I think it's absolutely great. At the very least, it's like 10 times better than what we had before, and they can still work on that and tweak it, maybe add in a little bit more of the realism to bring it sort of back in line with where Smite 1's graphics were, or they can take it in a different direction, or like different but similar. Looks promising. I'd like to see much more mythological elements in the maps from various pantheons, more props, pottery, murals, pillars, etc. It's just a very simple forest with rocks here and there. Yeah, I imagine that kind of stuff is coming. The lead environment artist literally said it's coming, baby. Yeah, this is very early days. They probably want to nail down the art style before they start making any major like assets and props and stuff that they want to put around the map, because if they make them for, you know, this style and then they change it to this, then they're going to look really out of place. So they probably want to nail down the core art style before they start adding in a lot of those mythological elements and props and all that kind of stuff. It looks like Smite 1 Season 3. I think it looks more like Smite 1 Season 5 personally, especially with like the clear divide between the map like Season 5 had with that like fissure down the middle, and then like Chaos side was more purple and Order side side was more like yellows and stuff like that. Obviously in this one it's green and like autumn colors. But yeah, that's a change in art direction. Again, mostly positive on this one. It's not like necessarily a universally positive reception like the card art thing. I have seen a few people in my comments, not many people on this Reddit post honestly, but a few people in my comments saying they don't like the art direction. But overall, I would say like a bare minimum 95% of people were saying this was a positive change, and like 5% were saying it was bad, maybe even less than that. Next up, a big change for Smite 2. All gods will now deal only one damage type, similar to Smite 1, but any god can still build any item, and some hybrid gods still scale their damage from both stat types. So this is one that I have seen a bit more mixed reception towards. There's a lot of people saying, oh, this is great, it's going to simplify the game a little bit, so it's not as crazy, it's going to buff tanks, because they don't have to build like mixed damage types against one type of character. But then I've also seen people say it's dumbing down the game too much, and like the whole reason Smite 2 was any different from Smite 1 is because of this kind of stuff, and now they're removing it and just making it like Smite 1. So I've seen a lot of mixed takes on this in my own comments. Let's see what Reddit thinks. So Crit Ymir is now magical. Yes, Crit Ymir will be magical, but will still scale off of strength pretty heavily. I heard there's a new title too, Smite 2 Smite. Yeah, that's the kind of thing I was talking about when people are saying it's basically just trying to be Smite 1, but ever so slightly different rather than a new game. Makes sense from a purely defensive standpoint. It was entirely possible for a Neath 2 to hit way harder than her 1 if you didn't have magical defense yet. So yeah, this is the main like argument in favor of it in my opinion. You know, it's just going to make tanks a lot better and a lot simpler. You're not going to have to like think about building both kinds of defense against a Neath or whatever. Happy about this because Anubis Rat doing physical damage when he was 95% pure mage was kind of dumb. Yeah, those kind of cases were really dumb, and those could have been removed without, you know, necessarily making every single god do the same damage type always. You know, they can have a few gods that do that. I think they already did. You know, like Kukul Khan, for example, is entirely in scaling, entirely magical damage as far as I'm aware. Anubis, they could have just changed that and made him entirely magical as well. But I do think some gods actually did fit quite well with dealing a mixed damage type. But then it would also be a bit of a balance nightmare. You know, if some gods are purely one damage type, they need to be inherently slightly stronger, especially in solo lane, but in general, they need to be inherently slightly stronger than gods that deal mixed damage types, because it's going to be easier to build against them. You know, instead of having to go a mixed defense item that's 35 of each prot, you just go one like physical defense item that's 70, and then you like tank them much better. So it would have been a bit of a balance nightmare. We'll have to see. For me, I'm kind of torn on this. I think there are some upsides and some downsides to doing this change. I do think it dumbs down the game a little bit, and I do think it was really cool that you could have like these kind of, you know, you build how you want, and if you see the enemy stacking a lot of physical defense, maybe you invest in a little bit more into your abilities to deal magical damage and that kind of stuff. I think it was very interesting, but I've also seen a lot of the community calling for this kind of a change to simplify it, and so, you know, maybe it will be an overall positive. Okay, and finally, we have starter items are back in Smite 2 and now have a dedicated slot, thus they no longer take up a slot in your 6-item build. Honestly, I love this. It was one of my favorite features from Predecessor. I hope they continue to evolve the system over time, but this is an amazing base to start from. Starter items are a great part of Smite 1, so I'm very happy that they're returning in the sequel. A great compromise, since they're a 7th slot, I hope they tone down the power of the upgraded versions and treat it more like a bonus item rather than a base to build the entirety around your item, like build the entirety of your build around that item. So yeah, generally seems like a positive reception. For me, I was insanely happy about this. I've been calling for them to add starter items back, at least in a basic form, but maybe with upgrades, and they went whole hog and gave them upgrades, which is really cool. Personally, I think they should still keep them better than regular tier 3 items, in my opinion. I think it's cool that you have this like big power bomb item that you're really looking forward to, and level 20, you know, if you can speed run to that, you can get your starter item online, and it feels like a really big power spike. It feels really good. And oftentimes, you're not basing your entire build around the starter item. You know, if you're going sigil and solo lane, it's not because you're going entirely a mitigation build all the time. You know, it's just because it's a good starter item with some good upgrades. And if you're going like Death's Embrace and ADC or something, it's not because you're building an entirely lifesteal healing build. It's just because it's a good item. Like, I don't think you necessarily need to build around every single item. They're more so just like more powerful versions of fairly generic tier 3 items. Personally, not a fan of starter items, but this is the absolute best way to go about them. I hope they have some more interesting upgrades down the line, so it really gives builds some identity, or alternatively, I hope they stay simple and just fix some holes in God's kit by giving you access to things you wouldn't normally have access to. So yeah, by the sounds of this, he thinks that the main problem with starter items is that they take up a build slot and they wreck build diversity, which is a fairly valid argument in my opinion. Although for me, I personally think it's worth it with how they smooth out the power curve of the game, how they give you these really cool power spikes, how they're allowed to be more powerful because you can only have one of them. I think that's a really cool element that absolutely outweighs the slight lack of build diversity. But with this system, it's a 7th item slot, so it's not going to hurt your 6-item build diversity whatsoever, so I think it's pretty much universally positive, and yeah, generally the reception on Reddit and also in my comment section seems to be very positive for starter items coming back, which is really cool. But yeah, there you go, just a few Reddit posts about the new stuff coming to Smite 2 in the 24/7 alpha patch that they revealed on the Dev Insight show, just getting a general feel for community opinions on this kind of stuff. What do you guys think? Definitely let me know down below, and I'll catch you guys for another one tomorrow on Into Games. Peace.